What's going on, guys? My name is NFT Plenty, and I am here with Chad from NFT Pirates. Chad, you want to say hello?
What is up, everybody? Good to see everyone here with the main man himself.
And it's been so awesome because I think it's my first time ever talking to someone like in person, or not in person, but like talking like with words, like vocally with someone in the VB community. It's been all on Twitter and DMs and stuff, but I think it's my first time, so I'm excited.
That's good, man. It's cool to actually be able to do this because I find, I can only converse with people through like virtual technology because in person, there's nobody in my area that like cares about this stuff.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's nice to have like some camaraderie and like be able to have a conversation.
Definitely. And like that's been something I've really noticed about this community is that like I've never been in like an online community before. So it's been a cool experience, like being a part of people who are so supportive, like people you don't know at all, but they just support you with everything and they hype you up and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, it's
it's
crazy.
been
Like
awesome.
some of the, and then you get like your close people that you know, and it's like, it's funny. Like I've gotten closer to people now through like technology than I have like in person. Like I think I've
Yeah.
spent more time with people talking about collecting than I have about people's like actual lives. So
No kidding.
yeah,
So speaking of collecting, I know you come from a Pokemon card collecting background. Do you kind of want to speak on that a little bit, kind of how that got started, what that was like, and how you applied it to
sure.
Vivi?
Yeah. I mean, thanks, man. I mean, so basically when I was just super young, like I was taught maybe like 8 to 9 years old, my mom started like just collecting these cards for us on our behalf.
Oh wow.
For my sister and I. And then like that kind of like grew my interest. And then all of a sudden, like, by the time I was 11, I realized that we had like all three first base Pokemon sets like completed.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and like then, so it's kind of my mom, I would say, that really kind of started it off. And then that's what triggered me to get all into it. And then from there, I got into like Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and all that. And I just like put all the cards away and I would just like look at them, but they were like in pristine condition. And then I remember one day just like, looking up online, like what the value of some of these things were. And then that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually make like a potential business out of this or actually start selling these things off. And then
Right.
that's when I got into like grading the cards and like, sending them for PSA and all that stuff. And then just seeing, how difficult it was to actually get like a PSA 10 as an example, how it's pretty much impossible, like for the average person. And then when, NFTs came into existence, I was like, oh, wait a second, like now there's no grading system. I could sell something instantly. It's
Right.
in pristine condition forever. And, that's what just was like clicked. And I was like, man, like this is going to blow up. And like, we're only getting more digitized. So that's kind of now where the next transition comes into the NFT world. But yeah, man, I mean, I still got a soft spot for Pokemon. Like anytime I see a Charizard or even see like a Pokemon show, I was like, it just like brings me right back to when you're a kid and you're not doing it for money. You're just literally
Right.
doing it because you like love to look at the card or like show it off or like, like
Yeah, totally.
this is a whole different thing now. Now it's just about money, which sucks in a way. But
Yeah.
before it was actually about that stuff.
Did you ever actually play the game, or is it just about collecting?
To be honest, I played for fun, but not with the actual regulations and rules. Like I never like sat with like other people. I don't know if you did you do that?
Um, I had some cards. Honestly, I don't remember like what they were. I just remember
Yeah.
like getting like a pack of cards for Christmas. I forgot what it was, but pretty much like me and my brother would just like kind of make up our own rules and just like, I think my card's better than yours. I think I win this round, like stuff like that. It was nothing crazy at all.
Yeah, we had this one gaming spot. It was at a mall, and it was like, but it was with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I don't know if you remember like those sheets that you'd pull out, and you'd lay
Oh
your
yeah,
and you get the
yeah,
cards in the middle. And I know it was like based on damage and stuff like that, but I remember playing with a guy that was a lot older than me. So I think I was like 14 at the time, so I didn't really understand the game, and he just kept like killing me off and be like, "You lost again, you suck," and like stuff like that's why I think I just like started hating the actual card part
yeah.
of
He,
it. I
he
just
was
wanted to
showing no mercy.
yeah. But I love the idea of like opening a package of cards. I remember one time I got this $300 card and the guy like and at the time that was a big deal for Yu-Gi-Oh. And I remember the guy paid me like 300 bucks cash for the card, like right there after I opened it, because I guess it was like super rare to get that specific one. And like that's what just like blew me away. It was like the opportunity that you have with collecting, right? Like you never know what
Right.
you're gonna get. Like I look at those people like that got the Givenchy poster off the drop that didn't even do their research and it was 99
Yeah.
bucks at the time, but now they're worth 8 grand and they're like, oh shit.
Honestly, speaking of that one, that was actually I'll never forget that draw because it was the first one I had to miss, like in the entire like VV my time on Vivi, because I was on vacation in Hawaii, and so the drops there, so like I'm in California, so the drops are at 8 a.m. but
Yeah.
there it was at 5 a.m.
Oh
And
my.
so like it was just so early, and also the reception in the hotel was not the greatest. So I'm like, I'm not even gonna try to wake up. I'm probably not gonna get it. But I actually heard that the like the Pride posters, that they didn't sell out for a while. I heard. Is that correct? Do you know that one?
So I know I think it was actually pretty quick. Like if I don't forget, if I remember correctly, I think it was right after they sold out. But then when they went into the secondary market, they dropped all the way down to $200. So they started off at like 270, and then
Oh,
I got
okay.
another one from my mom, and I said, "Mom, just never like let go of this one. Like I just need."
Right.
And then it dropped to $200. And I remember thinking to myself, man, maybe I'm an idiot. Like I should have bought it at 200. You know,
Right.
if I would have known now, I would have been buying them up at 2 grand. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
honestly. I mean that goes for a lot of collectibles on Vivi, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, so yeah, that was a cool drop. But what really got me into it was because I think I told you I got in the app on March 9th. And so like I got in like I think it was like one of the first 15,000 people. And then I ended up like taking a little bit of time, but I ended up buying 18 Tods and then a
Oh,
bunch of
shoot.
other collectibles. And and then I ended up like repositioning and selling some of them off. I think I said this too, but it was just like looking back now, man, like all the decisions I made, like some of them were smart, some of them weren't. And so like even though I thought I knew a lot, like some of the stuff has still taken me by surprise. Like, you know,
Right.
like there's a few things I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that to grow so exponentially. Like for instance, like Cleopatra and
Yeah.
Givenchy said, I'm like, I don't see the appeal there other than just scarcity and the fact that it's part of that rewind set. But I was like, I would have never anticipated that going to 5K over something else that was like 1,000 editions, you know?
Right. So like what's your kind of philosophy, and like how you collect, or things you look for, or like what you prioritize?
Yeah, so the biggest things that I look for is something that's extremely scarce. So if it has scarcity and if it's really popular and has like a big market cap, then I think that's pretty much like a no-brainer. Like that's going to be the golden goose for most people. So I think that's why, you know, reflecting on the Marvel comic, the first one, knowing that it was like a $1.3 million, I think it was like 9.4, 9.2 graded copy out in the real world.
Was it
That
really?
should have
Oh
been,
man.
yeah, like I think it was actually the Comic Wave that did a video about on that, and I'm like, if I would have just thought a little bit more intensely about that, I would have been like, okay, wait a second. So it's got scarcity. It's only got 600 editions, and it's the first comic from Marvel in existence. I know it's not the first one because on Terra Virtua I had one before, but then I was like, you know, if like that equation should have been like, man, for $1,000, like you should have bought up like as many as you possibly damn could at that point, you know? So
Right.
I think that's another thing. And then the other thing that I think is like just things that are very monumental. So like I think for me, you know, secret rare Spider-Man, the Superman, the Todd Batman, things like the first ever set, you know, the first ever Givenchy poster, like all those things that are very monumental, I think will do really well. But the problem that I have is that depending on how many users we have come in the app, I worry that over time, a lot of these collectibles actually might lose worth depending on what VV does for like how many collectibles they actually mint, you know? Because
Mhm.
it's like, okay, right now we have 500,000 users or maybe a million. I don't know what the current estimation is. Do you know what we're at?
Last I heard a few weeks ago was like 700K.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't know an updated number, but it's in that ballpark.
Right. So let's just say like if 700K. And so let's say in the next 2 years, you know, we only get to like 3 million or something. But at the same time, the volume of collectibles has like increased like 100-fold. Then I could see a lot of things actually depreciating in value. But the things that would hold extreme significance would be like the Todd Batman, the first NFT, or the
Right.
Marvel comic, because at that point, there's just less saturation. So people have to pick what's important. As I see, if it's like, you know, we have 10 million people in the app in 2 years and it's the same amount, then potentially everything's elevated. But then the other thing is the master collector might throw that all out. And like, if, you know, if the master collector program comes and says, hey, if you're a master collector, you get all this land in the VeVeVerse, well, then you can, you know, bet your like friggin' $1 million that everything's going to be elevated because people want to have that status. So
Right.
there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, currently as to what to predict. But I think the safe option is to go something that's extremely popular and has scarcity. I think that's just, you know, like just an easy win.
Yeah, that's pretty much been my philosophy too. And just going back to the comic, like what you're saying, like how like everything was lining up for it to be so perfect. But like I was like, I don't know why, but I guess I was really thrown off by just how we'd never seen comics on Vivi before. And like they started off so cheap. I didn't expect like the resale to be like however many times it is, you know, because usually like if it's cheaper, like I know this is not a good comparison at all, but like the Mermacornos or like the Kripkins, you know, I know they're not Marvel comics, but like they don't sell for too much because they already start off so cheap. So I was thinking like, oh, they're $7, they might not sell for as much. But looking back on it now, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but like it seemed like a no brainer now. But at the time, I was pretty hesitant. But
Same as you, man. I made the same mistake. Like I could have sold my Golden Moogly, even if I sold it for like 6K just to get it the quick money and bought 3 comics, I'd still be at 150K, right? And that's
yeah,
that's the
totally.
crazy part for me. I'm just like like looking back, but I agree with you. It was the same thing. It was like $6.99. I didn't really know too much about comics, unfortunately. Like I think a lot of those guys that knew a lot were like, holy crap, like I don't know how people are sleeping on this. Then the
Right.
fact that it was then brought into augmented reality like after the fact, like not at that point. So I had the use case, then the utility grew.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, like looking back, like you said, hindsight's 2020, but there'll be future opportunities. And the other thing that I think is like the items that are super scarce, like the Golden Mooglies, the Donnies, you know, the hymns, etc. I do think that they could still fetch tons and tons of money in the future. And the reason is that if whales ever wanted to control the price of a certain collectible, it's a lot easier to do so when there's fewer editions of it. So I
Right.
feel like, and then I don't know, like depending on how many people, like once OMI to NFT becomes a thing, like I could see these big ETH guys that are making millions of dollars just be like, yep, let's buy up these 12 Golden Mooglies right now and then just set the price at like 100K.
Oh,
And
easily.
right, instead of the secret rare or something else, it might take a longer. I don't know about the comic, but I don't know, man. It just sucks. Like looking back, like it was you and I always thought this was gonna happen, but now if I would have like just been a little smarter, I would have probably like taken out like 50K and just been like, screw it. Like I'm putting everything I have
And
into
no
this.
kidding, no kidding. I know. And when that money transfer license comes out, we'll be able to actually cash out. So
I'm excited
yeah,
for that.
as of right now, I've just been like we were saying before we started filming. It's just been hard to like just keep putting money in when you can't take it out yet. And so it's hard to justify like spending all this money going into, you know, just like digging a bigger and bigger hole when it's uncertain how long it'll be until we can actually see the money if we were to sell or try to make it back. But it's tough decisions.
It is. You're right, man. And it's like you know, when you take big risks, there's like big rewards. So I feel like I've taken a medium risk and I'm getting a medium reward. So it's like, you know, like I wish I would have just been like, whatever, like let's just you know take the risk. But there's still uncertainty. Like, you know, like we talked about this, like, you know, potentially Bitcoin crashes, and despite how great VV is, you know, if there's another crash like that, like, you know, like I know we like the whole thing happening in the States right now with the deficit that like I don't know the whole logistics, but like in like 17 days or whatever, if that's not fixed, that could affect like the, you know, the your currency. And it's like, okay, well that's, you know, people might just start to pull out. If you got, you know, if you got 300K in VV, you might be like, let me sell this off for 150K, put that into like my family. Like I don't know how this whole thing's going to shake down. So I think
Right.
that's the problem with risk is like, you know, like even though there is like it's very calculated and a lot of people are like, oh, this is going to pay off. And I do believe it, like whoever's holding all this stuff. Like I saw a guy's vault today, it's like 700K. And I'm
Oh
like, man,
man,
if like imagine that in 5 years, that might be like, you know, I don't know, like 17 million or something, right?
could
So
be
it
anything.
could be anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's tough.
And also, you know, like what we see in the States here a lot too is like regulation. You know, you never know when the president's gonna say something bad about crypto, and then you know that scares everyone off. So just like any day things can happen. So it's really hard. But like you said, I am confident in the long term that VV will be successful and that a lot of these first appearance, these rare ones will be very collectible. So I feel comfortable in making my investments that way.
Yeah, and that's an interesting philosophy you bring up with like the first appearance, because like, you know, I was like thinking about that today with like the comparison between Rizzo and Todd. And I was like, Rizzo is obviously first ultra rare, you know, it's a first edition, and it's like obviously 1/4 the amount of editions than Todd. But I was also like, it's not the FA. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so another NFT platform can come out that could be just like VV and have all these great licenses with DC and do some other sick versions, but they still can't have FA. I like, because it's technically not the first appearance of Batman in digital format. Like I don't know how, like, you know what I'm trying to say? I feel like that's
right,
why
right.
FA is so valuable and could be like Like that's why I think Todd long like term and Superman and all those, like despite having so many more editions, I don't know. Like I just don't know how that's going to shake out.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but since that's part of the Batman Black and White series, when there's a like just like a normal Batman, like that would be first edition again, wouldn't it be? Because it's
Yeah,
not
I'm
part
not
of the
sure.
Black and White series. It'd be like its own edition type. Because like Harley Quinn, red, what was it, like Black, Red, and White? Those are all first editions. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but I regard first appearance a little bit higher than first edition, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like the other thing that I was like hearing today was like the whole thing with DC. Like perhaps you could fill me in, but like I know that DC is not doing their comics now with Vivi, but like there was some FUD around like DC that like potentially Vivi losing DC partnership, and I'm not sure, but I was like I saw that was been kind of because I saw Todd's price drop to like 1.1 and then it came back up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. I haven't been checking that much, but I do know about the DC news. I know a little bit, at least from what I've heard. Apparently, like DC Direct and like DC Comics are different. I mean, they're all under DC, but they're different like brands, or like whatever you want to call them. I think Todd McFarlane actually owns DC Direct,
Right.
and so like the digital collectibles are a part of DC Direct, and then like the comics are part of DC. So like Vivi has the DC Direct license, but not the overall DC license. And that's my understanding. So that's why they're dropping like the first DC NFTs on that other platform.
Right. So what do they mean by that? Like is it their first DC NFTs? Because technically wouldn't like Vivi's NFTs be the first, like of DC?
I
That's
get
what confused me. That's why I was like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, I'm still a bit confused, but my understanding is that like DC Direct is not the same as DC.
I see. So like
So
it'll be a separate entity. So that's why they're like, oh, it's our very first for this. And maybe wording is important. Like maybe they're just trying to make
yeah,
it sound more appealing, but like not
true, yeah.
thinking about the technicality of it. And
Right.
then that's why I was like, got my back up because I was like, wait a second, like this could definitely affect the value long term, right?
No,
If
for
they're
sure. I mean, when I saw that, I did get. I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a little bit nervous at first. Like, hold on, like
yeah,
what's? I mean, I trust Veve and everything like that. And I trust that like everything is legit. But still seeing like different platform and seeing like DC themselves saying our first NFTs, it's kind of like
yeah,
like what's going on here?
yeah, for sure. And that's what I mean about like sometimes these collecting things. Like there could be a little torpedo like that that comes out,
Yeah,
and you
just
just
blow
don't
it
even.
all up. Yeah,
Yeah. So this whole time, like, yeah, Todd's number one. Like you forget about it, and then boom, something like that happens, and who knows, right? But it could make it. Let's say DC does pull, make it even more valuable because there'd be like a limited amount of additions that came into VV. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
true. Kind
No.
kind of like a reprint scenario, like in
Yeah,
like normal
exactly.
collecting. Yeah.
Right. Like this huge thing that people are seeking out in the future. So but it just that's my point. So like a lot of it, and the other thing that kind of scares me is like if like remember with GameStop how those guys just like pumped like
Yep.
GameStop,
Totally.
a few others. So I like think about like once this app gets big enough, you're gonna start seeing like probably groups called like I don't know the Murmur group, and they're gonna be like, all right, everybody, like everyone go buy up Perla,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
like you're gonna get like 1,000 people buying up Perla until it goes to like a K, and then people are gonna want to ride the wave, and then somebody's gonna be left holding the bag. But like
Right.
I could see that happening more, and and that'd be like obviously market manipulation. But I'm just like I think once this gets bigger, I think like it's gonna be very like abstract in terms of what climbs, and a lot of people are gonna have
Right.
different friends, different places. Whales are gonna have their own groups, kind of informing each other of what's going on. So
Right.
there's a lot of uncertainty with those things.
And then also you mentioned this with like earlier on, but always got to throw in the master collector program. Like I could see commons. I could see commons getting a huge bump once the master collector program comes out, because now they'll have more value, because even though they're just common, you still need them to complete a set. So if the floor for like a common Murmur is like 200, but you want that set, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and pay for that. So because if the rewards are good enough, people are gonna be willing to dish out the extra money for it.
Right. And then you'll see, you said it perfectly. You'll see like a mad dash to
Yeah.
get all these things. And then people will just be like, perfect. I've been holding these forever. Like, let's throw them up. Right.
Right. Like I've been preparing for the Master Collector article that's supposed to come out this weekend. I've been stocking up on a few extra sets because I feel like once they really lay out like if you have this, then you'll get this. Then I think people be like once people see that like tangible rewards, I think they're gonna just do a mad dash and try to finish sets.
And imagine it's the inverse. Imagine it's like a huge dump.
Oh
And
man.
people are like, man, we actually don't need the like, because this is what I've been saying before. I was like, if they make it an advantage program, I feel like it would deter people. Like I know personally, because of my collecting strategy, I've been just after like the things I told you, like scarce and popular. Like I haven't been collecting sets because I just like, to me they won't, I mean, don't get me wrong, that like they do hold value, but I just think like if I want to maximize value, then potentially that's not the way to go. But if they come out and say like, guess what, it's just a perk advantage program, so meaning like if you get 10 sets you get like a Batman cave, if you get 20 sets you get like any cave of your choosing, and if you get like 30 then you get like, I don't know, like a bunch of these perks, right? But if they say like, oh, if you get 30 sets you get extra land, if you get 30 sets you get advanced on drop times, like I would personally be so deterred that and a lot of other people coming in would be like, this is just, I can't collect 30 sets
Ah,
to get
right.
advantages, so why would I even join? Because it's like these guys are so much further ahead. And that's what I think the difficult part is with Vivi, is like they're like, how do we make this where everyone's happy, but at the same time these people that have like, 80 grand in the app that they put in themselves are still getting something that's like substantial and worth their time. So
Definitely.
that's an interesting one. Like I think what they should do, in my opinion, is like have a lot of perks, but then also have like special collectibles that are just dished out to like master collector, like almost like a master collector drop. So
Right,
you
like an airdrop type thing.
yeah, like exactly. Like, okay, master, like you, and then now in a new field. And like, so for instance, like if you're a master collector and there, let's just say there's like, I don't know, requirement is like 25 sets or more. And there's like maybe, I don't know, like 21,000 people that are master collectors. Then all of a sudden they do drops for certain things that are just exclusive to them. And
Right.
it has like a really low additions so that it could boost the scarcity, but that wouldn't affect me on my drop day because I
Right.
still, you know what I'm trying to say? But then I know, man, if I get that meta sets, I can join their group and have the opportunity for even more money, you know?
Definitely. Yeah, I've been for a while I was kind of nervous about my strategy because my overall strategy is kind of the same as yours. I think I got it from you guys, honestly, from watching your videos, but like
Yeah.
FA, rarity, popular characters, popular brands, that kind of thing. But I also have been like, since I've been hearing like Dan and those guys talk about the Master Collector program for a while, I was trying to like use my early access, if you will, to like plan ahead and try to, so like if they do give perks, it won't be as hard to get them because I was buying the sets when people didn't know about that. So that's kind of been what I've been trying to do, but I have been kind of worrying a bit if my strategy isn't going to pay off as much, if like the rewards for holding sets aren't as good as I'm expecting or hoping. But some of your ideas were pretty interesting, like some airdrops or like exclusive drops if you earn a certain tier of ranking.
Yeah, that's like how I would see it. It's just like exclusivity and things that we couldn't get. And so it'd be like enticing to like want to join, but it wouldn't like take away from my experience, so to speak. Like I'd still have the same luck as, let's say, you on a regular drop. But and I think like, and I could be wrong. Like they might come out and say like, guess what, master collectors, you guys get secret rares every time. Like, you get advanced drop time. Like they might come out and just that. But like for me, and I think for, because they always talk about inclusivity, equality, stuff like that. So
Definitely.
like, okay, if you impose that kind of strategy, you would already eradicate so many people from joining. Like, imagine somebody from like, I don't know, like Indonesia or like Bangladesh or something like that that are like, oh, I want to join, and it's $7 is already a stretch, and now you can't even get on a drop time in time. So it's like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
then you're already disadvantaged to people who can just keep pumping money in it, and then you have on top of it more disadvantages when they get priority and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah, I
Exactly.
can definitely see that. And like,
So for me, like, yeah,
sorry, just like what you're saying about like it might deter you if you're already out of reach. Like that's how I kind of see some other NFT programs or platform. I mean, not sorry, projects such as like Bored Apes or CryptoPunks, for example. I see like the floor is already so high. Like the vast majority of people when they see it, they're like, oh, I'm out. Like, what's the next NFT project? Like, I can't get that one. Like, what's the next one? So
right.
I think it's important that VV, like you said, they make it inclusive and still give rewards, but don't but it doesn't affect you, like you said, someone like you who doesn't have as many sets, like they don't feel left out or like they're disadvantaged.
Right, exactly. And so like that's the thing that I think about. And then on top of that, because like you would be a master collector, let's just say, like then you would still get like different things that I wouldn't get. So it's still, you would still feel like, oh, I feel proud of like putting in this money because now I'm getting even more money out of it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, but I don't think, I don't know. Like I just don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I just know that they have to, like, this is a very important decision. Like
For sure. This will
whatever they
shape
come
the
up
app.
with, this is going to shit. Like you said, like we might see one of two things. I think they're smart enough where you're right, all the comments and everything will increase in value, but it could be the opposite. Like you could see something where people are like, screw it, it's not worth it, and then just go after all these, like, so Javante Pride might go to 25K,
True.
you know,
Yeah.
Todd's might go to 5, and then other things might just, I don't know. Like I don't know what will happen. So we'll see, man.
It'll be
But
interesting, man. I can't wait
yeah,
to see what's coming up. But
yeah,
we had been talking about first appearance, first edition and stuff. And a question I've been meaning to ask someone such as yourself, experienced in collecting and Vivi, because I've
yeah.
been questioning this pretty much my whole time on the app. I was gonna ask you, how much weight do you think like the first thing on Vivi will hold? Like we know Todd's the first
Yeah.
appearance of Batman, and that will hold true no matter what platform it's on. But like, oh, this is the first fill in the blank on Vivi. Like how much weight do you think that'll hold in the future?
Yes, I think that that's going to hold like a tremendous amount of weight. Like I think like that's what people don't understand now is like because it's so new and because no one really knows like the future trajectory. Like we can all agree that we think it's going to be the best NFT platform in the world and it'll be worldly wide recognized. Where like Apple will have a deal with Vivi and Disney will have it on their channel and like all the, would you like to watch this movie and then go buy a collectible? Like this is the kind of thing that I think about.
Right.
Uh, and if it goes there, then like you could bet your marbles that like the first ever NFT is going to be like extremely monumental. This is what I think about. Like, right now we have these things that are really limited editions, like a Golden Movie, 188 editions. And right now, because there's not many collectibles on the app, like what you and I saw previously, when there's fewer, it's easy to be like, oh, well, this is worth so much more than that. But
Right.
like when you have the world involved in this and there's like 37 sets in, and I think we've had this conversation, like I would look back and be like, okay, like if I want clout and status and I'm a millionaire, like what do I want to show off? I want to show off the first one, like where it all began, right? And so, and I think there's some truth to that. Like I think about like CryptoPunks. It's the same thing with NFTs. Like those are some ugly NFTs, like just some pixels, right? And
Right.
like, they go for millions of dollars. And so now we're in a whole new game. This is the first licensed NFTs from really big, reputable, substantial brands. And so like that's kind of where I think things would go, right? And I remember making a video on like, the first set will reach 100K, and I think now we're seeing like that's, of course it's going to, like, just where we're at now and with
Yeah.
700K users, like I mean I think it's pretty obvious that one day it will. And so yeah, I feel like that's going to be huge, the first ever Marvel comic, and these things might last hundreds of years. Like this might just continue to be upgraded and upgraded with like the most recent technology because it exists on the blockchain. And so I feel it's almost like, just like a physical imprint, like the first ever Marvel comic comes into existence in physical format. And that's what it's worth now, 1 point whatever million. And I'm like thinking about now this is the digital format, which not only is pristine, will last forever, but now also has worldwide adoption. As before, you'd have to be like a comic person. Now you have everybody with every type of collectible in the same place.
Right. Like we
So
got we got Cartoon Network stuff, we got superhero
yeah,
stuff, we have whatever you can think of. And like in the trajectory of Vivi, with they have pretty much like every single license. It seems like I could see just endless amounts of collectibles, sets, series, just all just flooding onto Vivi.
yeah, exactly, man. And I think like anybody that bought up like 4 of those secret rare Marvel comics, like that's probably gonna go, like, just from what we're seeing, like 1 million each or something. Who, like,
Yeah.
who knows, right? But the only other thing that kind of worries me is also like when I thought about it today, I was like thinking about market cap. Like if you think that the secret rare Marvel comic is going to go to, let's say, 1 million, then you're saying the market cap is 600 million. And that's not even counting in like the better serial numbers, right?
Right.
So
Right.
maybe that's like $1 billion market cap. And then you go to Todd and you're like, oh, it's going to go to 10,000 a Todd. And then you're like, oh, well, that's a $75 million market cap, or, so it's like, like those are big numbers,
Yeah,
right?
it's like bigger than some crypto projects.
Exactly. So that's the other thing that I'm like, wait a second, like I don't want to get too ahead of myself either. Um, and then on top of that, like with the amount of editions that VV's printing per each collectible, like 60,000, 60,000, 60,000, it's like, there's going to be hundreds of millions of editions in this app eventually.
Yeah, probably pretty soon.
Yeah, and there's only 8 billion people in the world. So I mean, unless we start, advertising to space, like there's going to be a point where things are going to become too saturated.
Right. And I think that's where the first appearance, first edition, just first of anything, I think
Yeah,
that's where they'll really shine, really stand out. Because when there's just thousands and thousands of collectibles on the market, like we were talking about before, how like Big Barda and Starfire, those types of things were like early on, like April, May, around then.
yeah,
They were more expensive than they are. Well, I think they finally got back to there, but for the longest time, they were more expensive back then than they have been the last few months. And that's
right.
because we're assuming because there's just less overall collectibles on the app and there was less to choose from. So you see those and they stand out more. But now that we have Marvel and we have Da Vinci and all these things, it kind of gets diluted a little bit.
Man, that's perfectly said. You're exactly right. And like I think that's the part now that I'm seeing is like, okay, now with these secret rare comics that come out and they're almost like, 6K out of the pop, 7K out of the pop, sometimes 15K. And I'm like, okay, like if they keep dropping comics and the volume is not changing here, like eventually those comics might be 2K, 1.7K for the secret rare. Like obviously I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen, but like
Right.
depending on how many more people are coming in versus the amount of drops, and like you and I witnessed that perfectly. Like I remember buying a Nightwing at like 1,300 and being like, holy, like this thing's gonna go to the moon. Like, and then I think only now it's maybe gone $500 more than that. And this is back in like March.
Yeah, I know it was pretty tough because like I knew how good of a project this is, and I was always nervous that like I would wake up one day and it would just have blown up and like I missed my chance to buy more. So I was like, I need to buy every drop, I need to buy whatever I can because I was nervous that just like at any given time, if a certain YouTuber makes a video about it or if someone on the news talks about it, like it would just out of nowhere blow up. Because honestly, I'm surprised it hasn't blown up more by now. Because just when you consider all the factors, just like just Marvel alone is already just ginormous and it's so easy to use. Like anyone can do it. Like I have my grandma, my aunt going for drops. Like it's so awesome. Like it's so easy compared to most cryptos. I'm surprised it hasn't blown up more by now with so much going for it.
You're totally right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think people are trying to suppress it. That's my that's my perspective.
Yeah, I get that feeling too.
Yeah, because I think like you can't beat licensed, brands, and you can't beat the biggest brands in the world. And so I think like there's a lot of guys like I mean I don't know the whole status with Gary Vee and his company, but like there's a lot of other NFT projects that are like, look at these great pictures that we've done. This is like I don't know NFT astronauts or this is NFT Mars guys, and you're like,
There's every
and
kind of thing you could ever imagine.
exactly. And like eventually those things are going to die off unless you have artists or like popularity, behind it, right? Or something quirky or catchy or like, and then sometimes like, there's a secret recipe that every now and then one of those pops off. But like with sustainable big brands like this, like this will kill off, in my opinion, like everything else because
Yeah.
it has that professionalism, it has that thing where it's credible, people will buy into it. It doesn't feel like it feels sustainable because now it's like, well, just like Marvel created, action figures, now they're creating these NFTs. So it's like you can get behind it. And on top of that, what I like is like, things change in the world. So like when things aren't good anymore, for instance, on a certain picture, like, with Marvel, they can address that and then like change it as like these other things are more stagnant and run out of style. And so like that's why I believe in the brand, because like when you're and then because they're like I said, this is like a slow growing mutual fund, like because Vivi's got so many different people in there and so many great brands that like there's so much diversity. And if like just like what we saw with DC, like DC's like, we're not doing comics now with you, or maybe that was always the plan, but like the market didn't change too much other than DC, right? Because there's so much stability. But if DC
Right.
was the only brand, like potentially that thing would have like went to flames in 2 seconds.
Right, that's so true. And like also what I think is so cool about just NFTs, the blockchain and this technology, along with the licensing, is just that like with the blockchain and NFTs especially, like you can like these companies get royalties every single time it sells. So they have a vested interest in keeping them popular, keeping them selling. So they'll do whatever it takes to make sure people keep using these. And like there have been I'm not sure if you heard about the rumors about the Marvel Mighties. I think specifically the Fantastic Four ones. It might be all of them, but their file sizes are considerably bigger than every other collectible. And like they have like a tongue and like I'm not sure how like everything that goes into it, but people are speculating that like they'll be they'll be interactive, they'll be using like some type of game. I know like Orion Crypto Trader, he's saying like Marvel gets a royalty each time it sells. So like they might make like a game out of this and like help like hold these characters, you know, gamification, encourages people to be buying, selling, trading, and that every single time a transaction happens, they're just raking it in, you know, for just sitting back doing nothing. So
Man, that's crazy that you say that because I started thinking about that today. I was like, I forget what I sold, but it was like $400 went to Marvel or like whatever. And I was like, man, like what the heck? Like that's a pretty sweet deal. And so I think, you know, Marvel's like having a great time because the expenditure is exceptionally low.
so
And
low.
they don't do anything. Veve does all the work and they just get a percentage of the fees sold. Like
Yeah.
holy
Yeah, just for just owning the IP. And like they already have, I'm assuming they already have these models, you know, they have all these things just like in storage, just sitting around. Like, why not make it into an NFT and just make money for like forever, literally.
literally forever. Yeah. And I don't think like people keep saying like, oh, NFTs are gonna die out. I'm like, I think some of them will die out, but I do think like how could you ever think that like I don't know, like the secret rare Spider-Man like would die out? Like how like if that's the FA,
You're right.
right? And like you know, you gamification and like all these future utility and like you know the popularity behind it, like how would that start to crumble? Like I don't think it will. Like I think it's the opposite. Like we're only getting more and more digital. We say this like you know you've seen those glasses that like Facebook's come out with like their
Yeah.
metaverse and everything.
Yeah, I've seen
Like
that.
dude, like man, like I was saying the other day, like if you see an FA secret rare Spider-Man, 1,000 people in the world will have that. Like seeing that will literally be like seeing like a Ferrari La Ferrari or something, you know? It
Totally.
would be
Totally.
so rare. You'd be like blown away. Like I saw a Spider-Man FA secret rare. Yeah, shut up, you saw that today. Like you're like, I swear to God, I saw it. Like
Let alone
that's the
having it, just
future.
like just seeing it is already gonna be insane.
Yeah. Like somebody will be a skin with that and it'll like read FA and like people be at the mall and be like, oh my God, that guy just walked by with the skin of FA Spider. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Honestly.
future. That's how I see it. I mean, I could be totally off, but if it goes that way, then you and I, buddy, we're gonna be laughing. Like, yeah,
Oh, totally. All the way to the bank.
yeah. And girls like you'd be an easy way to pick up girls and or if girls want to pick up guys, like it'd be like driving a fancy car. Like that's how I
Totally.
if you're exposing that, that's the future. So all these guys that are in like, you know, wearing their Rolex watches and their like Lamborghini, people will be like, like you don't got that Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah, because just off the bat, you know, that just seeing that people are gonna know how much it's worth. And you know, like, oh man, like just seeing like a skin or just a collectible like already will let you know an idea, like the minimum of how much that person has in assets, you know. So
Right.
it could be a huge flex for sure.
Huge flex. And like that's what I think. Like when I think about my kid, I think about my kid literally like wearing these glasses and they're looking outside and they're like, I want the sky to be pink and I want like this car to
Man.
look this way and like I want my friends to be talking to me even though they're not there. Like you can have like I don't know, like pre-recorded scripts or like AIs that will act like your friends. Like you
Oh
know,
man.
like there's so many things that like in 50 years from now, like I think that's going to change. And so I think like people like just like Bitcoin when people were like making fun of them and like it's the same thing now. It's like here's the next best opportunity and like make fun of it all you want, but I think you and I both know where it's headed, right?
Definitely. Like how I see it is I see this as if you could go back in time and someone like was was gonna tell you like, hey, this is the first ever fill in the blank comic, like of course you would buy it, you know, like no matter what the price was at the time, because you know it's gonna go up. So I see this as like we have kind of like a cheat code in a way, or like we can kind of see into the future, like okay, like you always say, the entire world's going digital, and these
Yeah.
are digital, the first ever digital collectibles. Like I feel like we're getting like a second chance at like being able to stock up on these that we know with a high degree of certainty that they'll be valuable based on previous comics and figurines and that kind of thing.
It's so well said. Like I don't think anybody thought Todd was going to be sitting at like 1.8K as an example. Like that's like more than that's like a 20x from 79.99. And like I remember saying that to people and they're like, yeah, screw off, like 7,500 editions. Like when they're at 10K, the same thing's going to be happening. Oh, when they're going to go to 50K and people are going to be like, screw off, like it's hit its peak.
Right.
And, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's just going to be the same model. Like you and I both saw this next wave of like happening now. And then we were part of the first wave. So when we got in, all those other people that were before us were like, Rizzos were only selling for a few $100, and then they went to like 4K overnight. And it's
Yeah,
the same thing happening now. Like, you know,
definitely.
Professor was like sitting always between 2 to 3K. And then now it's finally like 5 to 6, you know? And
Finally
so
getting some recognition for how low
finally,
the additions are.
yeah. So it's cool, man. It's exciting. And you know, I'll be fair, like I did sell some things off just because I had like a wedding, I bought a new place, and like there was a few things I like needed to pull the money out, and like every day I live with that regret. Like I just wake up and like shit, you know?
Yeah, I gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, though.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And sometimes life is, you know, it's really important. So it's like, okay, like at least I could justify it with that, or at least I try to. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
I mean, we're still so fortunate that we to have what we have. Like a lot of times I have to remind myself of that. Like when I miss out on a drop, or when, like for example, like Secret Rare Spider-Man, he was sitting at, well, at one point I think he got as low as like 1.2K, if I'm not mistaken,
yeah, you're
which is
right.
ridiculous. But when he got like around 2K, I was thinking like more and more about it. I'm like, okay, first ever Marvel NFT, Secret Rare, first appearance Spider-Man, like everything is kind of pointing like this is like gonna blow up, obviously. And so I was trying to figure out, like, could I sell stuff? Like, could I pull some money, from my savings? Like, could I get this Spider-Man? And then it was the same day that I'm forgetting their names, but those people that like kind of made like the club, like the that exclusive club, like they have like over 100,000 followers on Twitter and stuff. I don't
Oh,
know their names, but they were talking about Veve, and
oh,
they made a Twitter space, and they anyway, it was that same day, and they and like in like a Twitter space, they said, oh, we're making a club if you hold Todd, Secret Rare Spider-Man, or Superman. And then I'm not sure if that was the only catalyst, but like that day, the Secret Rare Spider-Man went up to like 5K. I think that day hit 10K, from 2K to 10K in one day. And so anyway, where I'm going with that is that I feel bad like when I miss out on chances like that, but then I try to bring myself back. Like, we've been here for so long, we've been so early, we already have so much good stuff. I try to keep that into perspective sometimes.
yeah, I think you're right. Like I think, like, you know, even let's say somebody coming in 6 months from now buys one Todd or one Superman, like I still think they're set. Like I
Yeah,
don't
me
think
too.
they're set now, but I think they're set like in 6 years from now. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Like so I think like and it's just going to keep getting like that. And I still think it's like super early. But my biggest thing is like I hope that like they get like more familiar, like more signing with like these huge brands like Facebook or like Apple or something, where they actually do
Right.
like labs and like, you know what I mean? Like that's
Totally.
where my interest goes. I'm like, if anything ever happens like at that magnitude, then it's like
Is game over.
it's more than, yeah. Like you and I will be like, I'll just be on like, I don't know, Bora Bora sipping, like, you
Oh,
know.
totally, bro.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I I daydream about that stuff like so often. I'm like, man, this, because I have the Secret Rare Fantastic Four comic. I got that on the drop, and so I just think about, I see the price go up, and just like that one collectible, like on its own is already over 10K. I'm like, man, like where could this go in a few years? And then I start daydreaming about Bora Bora and Tahiti and stuff like that. I'm like, man,
Dude,
this is, life's gonna be good.
that's so crazy. I've never got a secret rare yet. I've been,
Really.
yeah, and I've been like I've been showing up. I've got a few ultras, which is still pretty solid, but you know, I'm praying for that secret. But that's pretty damn cool that you got that one, because like you said, that's, you know, from $7 investment, 10K. I mean, that's no different than walking into a thing and getting two lotto tickets and then one of them hitting $10,000. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Definitely. I know. Like when you put it into that perspective, it's like,
yeah,
oh man, like we're really hitting the lottery here.
yeah, right. And you know, the other thing that I think people need to think about though is like, I started thinking about this, is like when you cash out in the future, like there's going to be tax implications. There'll be like, you know, all these different things where like, I don't know, I live in Canada. So for us, that's like on capital gains, it's like 50%. So if I
50?
sold something within 1 year, like if I sold, let's say a golden movie for 100K, they'd be like, that's 50 grand to you, not 100, you know?
Oh man.
And then if it gets like regulated by like Vivi, which I'm presuming it would be with the
Me
MTF,
too.
then like, you know, these wins will be on the record, but like you're gonna have to like then, you know, go to the IRS in your case, or else the CRA, and be like,
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
the entire history here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of been in the back of my mind about tax implications and stuff.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to, speaking of comics, I wanted to ask you, have you heard about, well, so I'll set it up first. So there was this interview that Dan did in Chinese.
Okay.
And so I'm just gonna have to trust the translation, but it said that he said that comics in the future are gonna deteriorate the more you use them, in order to kind of like separate like which ones are more valuable, like to increase the value of some and lower the value of some others. Personally, I mean, I'll see how it plays out, but hearing it like that way, I'm not personally a fan of that. I feel like that kind of takes away that some of the appeal of NFTs, and like what, you know, like some of the appeal, like they don't get damaged, they don't get degraded, blah blah blah. But I was curious what your, if you heard that, and what your opinion is on that.
Well, that's super interesting because I did a tweet on that. Yeah, I forget what it was, but I was like, "Oh, they're going to be in pristine condition forever, amazing." And then a lot of people responded back saying, "No, they're not. Watch this video." The same thing you're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know, like, I mean, to me, that's really going to interrupt the serial number argument if that happens, right? Like with the mints, because people won't give a shit about that after, if like they're not going to be able to read a page out of a comic, as an example. So
Right.
that would totally throw that off. And I wonder if that's either like the reason for it is they feel like maybe, you know, it's not fair that some people get good mints and other people don't. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so therefore, if you use your NFTs a lot, it's on you whether or not it's worth a lot, which maybe
Right.
that's the reason for it. Like, to be honest, I think that's probably the reason for it now that I think about it. But I don't think that's right. Like, I think that's part of the appeal. Like, oh man, I got a number 41 like secret rare comic. It's like, you know, like it's 100K. Like that's part of the fun of it all. Uh,
Right.
and
Totally.
then it would suck to be like, you know, I don't want to show you this comic because, you know, like if you're trying to show a friend and you're like, actually, you know what, if I hit this point times, it deteriorates to the next level. Like,
Yeah,
what's the
exactly.
point of that, right? That's the whole purpose for NFTs, is to like you said, to have the pristine condition, to be able to see them all the time. So I
Right.
feel like it would ruin it, man.
And then like I'm also thinking like they're putting out these features, like they're making it readable in AR, and like why, like, and like how I see, like why would you punish people for using features that you build in, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was curious what your opinion was on that, because I'm personally not a fan, just with the little info that we've heard already from it. I don't want to be too quick to judge, but
Man,
yeah.
I agree with you completely. Like if I just think about it, like I think that would kill the serial number argument. Like, because that was the only reason that mints mattered, in my opinion, is because it's the only differentiator, right? To be like, this is
Yeah,
worth more
definitely.
bucks. So
Yeah,
I got it
because
earlier
in
than you, you know?
yeah, because in real life, do edition numbers, are there, like, is that a thing in like comics and stuff, or in collecting that?
Yeah, like I think, like, you know, the biggest thing you probably see is like for sports cards or something, when like the jersey number matches the sport card, or like you know, something's released earlier than another, like that matters. But I think like there was even more um emphasis placed on it with NFTs, because it was the only thing people could find out that was different, you know?
Right. Yeah, I know. When I first started, it wasn't until I started watching your videos that I even thought about mint numbers. Like I just like I kind of had like a feeling. I'm like, are some better than others? And like I'm like, should I be selling mine? Like, is this low enough to be valuable? And then I started like hearing you guys talk about it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let me hang on to my low mints and start to like, and like every so often you'll see someone who obviously does not know about mint numbers and they don't know what they're holding, and you'll see it on the market for like half a second and then it's gone. I'm like, oh, that poor person did not know.
Yeah. They're like, it's so weird. I put it at the, like, just over the floor and it was sold like this, you know? It's like, yeah.
Every time my stuff sells instantly, I'm like, did I just give up something really valuable?
Dude, it's true, man. Like, and that's what I started noticing, is like I was trading stuff at the beginning, like offline. Like I did so many trades. I was like one of those Telegram guys, you know, just going back and forth. And like I remember every time I do a trade, I wouldn't indicate the mint, and then people would just give me the high mint. So I was like, man, why like wouldn't it just be like completely randomized? Like I feel like there's you know. So then I started like asking, okay, what's your mint? Da 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 da. And then
Right.
that's when people were like, actually, I won't do that. And I was like, oh,
They're trying to pull a
interesting.
fast one.
Yeah, right. So that's what got us thinking about the mints. But you know, I do think you're right. Like I think if they have like physical degradation, like man, like that would screw things up in terms of like people, what they're doing now, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
So I had a few questions I wanted to ask you in like speed round type format,
Sounds
and
good.
just so we could, let's just fire them off.
So
So what is your favorite collectible that you hold?
uh honestly, Todd McFarlane. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason is like I do think that's going to be like a clout piece. Not now, not in like 3 years from now, but in like 6, 7 years. I feel like anybody that holds a Todd is just going to be seen as like OG, like, you know, like super smart because they were here early. I feel like it'd be a status piece, like
100% first ever
yeah,
set, all that.
yeah,
It has almost every first you could ever think of.
yeah. The only thing against it is like 7,500 editions, which won't be a lot in the future. But if it was like, you know, 3,200 or something, like I feel like it'd just be that much more valuable. But like to me that makes sense because they might have other Mooglies, like, you know, they might have hundreds of other things that have 188 editions. And even though like the golden Moogly was like the first, I think like long term that, you know, that could change. Is like Todd can't change, it's the first minted NFT.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Next, what is your most sentimental collectible? Like what, even if it might not be your favorite, like which one do you like have like a fond memory of or something like that?
Yeah, Spacey, or was it Lumpy Space Princess, man? That was I think
What's
it's
the
an,
story behind that one?
so it was I think it was like my brother had I think it was like a Gary Frank or something, like
Okay.
number 50. And then this guy was like, hey man, I'll trade you for like a Lumpy Space Princess. Like I forget what it was, but it was the last edition number.
Uh-huh.
And then my brother traded that. And like I just remember thinking like that was the stupidest trade I've ever
He had
seen.
number 50, 50?
Yeah, he had Gary Frank like number 50. Yeah.
Oh man.
And I remember he traded that for like this thing, and I remember just like thought it was like just hilarious. And so like it was just like a running joke in the house, like, oh man, like
Oh man, he's never gonna live that one down.
yeah, like he's the Lumpy Space Princess guy to me, you know? So
That's hilarious. That's not the reason I was expecting, but that is hilarious.
yeah, and then Superman would be like the most sentimental, and I think like just aesthetically, man, like I look at that one all the time. Like I just find an AR, it looks like crunchy, like it just like like just something about it that, and it's Superman, it just looks so powerful. Like I feel like I don't know, there's something there that like if I'm kind of bored and like chilling on my phone, I'm like, let's just see what Superman's doing, you know?
No, it does, like I'm not sure like what it is exactly, but something about it in AR looks so crisp and like
Yeah,
looks it kind of like looks different than the other collectibles in my
it
opinion.
looks like a tinny kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
does totally.
yeah.
So next question is, what's your biggest VV regret?
Well, recently, like maybe like, you know, during my wedding and all that stuff, I pulled out some money for the wedding. So I sold off like a pretty good portion of like my collection, thinking that I'd have time to like reposition things afterwards. And then right in the middle of that, I like missed out on the secret rare, the number one Marvel drop, the only one I missed out on because it was like the same time as the wedding. And then two
That
days goes by and I'm seeing it go to 10K, 20K, and I'm just sitting there going like, man, like timing is everything. And like if I would have just been more present, I think I would have had the wherewithal to potentially reposition at that point. So like, man, that just haunts me every day because I look at that being like, I could have had 300K right now, you know?
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. And then just also selling my Tods, like selling them to reposition and do other things. If I think about it, like I think not selling something would actually serve more purpose as well in the future because it hasn't been traded around on the blockchain. So it seemed
Right,
like pure potentially. So
right.
I was like, man, if I had 18 Tods that were just bought from the store, like in 10 years from now, like what the heck would the worth of those been, you know?
I all like only you have owned them. Like yeah,
Yeah.
not yeah. I'm wondering how that'll play out because that's part of the reason I not the only reason, but part of the reason I haven't sold my Fantastic Four comic is because I got it on drop, and I'm like, well, I'm the only one's ever held this, so I'm kind of hanging on to that aspect. I'm wondering if that'll help me out in the future. So that's another reason I don't want to sell it.
Oh man,
So
that's so
yeah,
interesting. Because they do the same thing with like watches, right? So like for instance, like people that look for old vintage watches, they generally they're worth a lot more if it only went through one person. So if like that person was the original owner and then they bought it from the original owner, it still holds a lot of value. But if
oh,
they
okay,
like that watch is traded around 3, 4 times, people don't trust it in the physical world because they're like, oh, who knows what happened, kind of thing.
okay, okay.
I don't know, like so. I just wonder, like, if that, you know, that like what I've seen in the physical world, that's what happens. So I wonder if that would apply here. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so next question would be, what was your biggest success on VV?
Um, I'd probably say like, you know, when I bought that golden Moogly at like with that really low price that time, I think that was just like a smart move. I got a lot of things like out of the way and purchased that. Probably another thing was like buying up a crap load of like 18 Tods at the beginning because I just figured like if I had to do one thing, it would be that. repositioning a lot of my stuff. So like when there was like a really important drop coming up, like I would go after like a common or an uncommon and get like a low mint, sell that off for like a K or a K and a half, while everyone else was looking for the ultra rare and rares. Like
Right.
perfect one was like Mike Magnolia Batman. I think I went for like a Hulas or something, and like I forget exactly what I did, but I got a low mint, sold that. Then I bought another, like a bunch of low mints, sold them all off.
Okay.
Made way more money. As like if I would have went with the Mike Magnolia, I probably would have went with like maybe, you know, tripled my money, and it was also worth more, right? You go from like $99 or whatever it is.
Yeah, very true.
So there's those kind of things. Now we can't do that. So now it's just like I feel like a pylon now. I'm just like, buy now. I don't have any strategy anymore.
I know. They did take out. I think it's more fair. I think it's better overall, but they did take out a lot of strategy. And I remember when you guys put out that video when you like revealed that secret about going for the commons to get the low mint. And then I remember like they updated it. Like maybe it was when I saw it, or maybe it was just when you guys put it out. But they updated it like shortly after. Yeah, like a week later. I'm like, oh well, I was gonna try that one out. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, man, it's too bad, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, kudos to you guys for catching on early and you know taking advantage of the low mints, because I for some reason that never even crossed my mind to go for a low mint common, because no matter what the collectible is, if it's a low enough mint, it'll go for a lot.
Man, yeah, like I remember like seeing some of these things sell for so much, right? Like number 41s were like, you know, crazy, selling for like, you know, 40,000 sometimes you'd see that go. So it's like people love that stuff, man. Yeah.
Definitely. And so next would be, what brand are you most looking forward to? It could be confirmed or unconfirmed. Just we can have some fun here.
Pokemon.
Oh man, I was gonna say Disney, but for whatever reason Pokemon was not in the front of my mind. But
yeah,
that'd be ginormous.
I think it would like secure like the entire world's attention, because like who else would have Pokemon, you know? Like,
right.
I feel like if we had Pokemon, like you could imagine like everyone would have no choice but to contain their emotion. Like you see like whatever his name is, Luke Paul, or like all those guys just going crazy, you know? So
oh yeah, yeah.
I feel like that one, once it happens, like buy up as much stuff as you possibly can, because the world's coming in, you know?
Oh, definitely. First appearance Pikachu.
Done. Yeah. Even if there's a million editions, you'd still probably make money, you know?
Oh, totally. And like again, the awesome thing about NFTs is I would imagine by the time Pokemon rolls around, I'm just assuming here that it would come on Vivi, but I mean, like, I could very easily see you be able to just fight your Pokemon together, like in AR, you know? So like, not only is it a collectible, you could actually play the game, and that would just give so much more value to it.
And that would be crazy.
Man, I cannot, I have a good feeling about Pokemon. Like as far as Vivi having it, I have a good feeling, but I'm not gonna get too excited, but I do think it's in the works though. So that would be insane.
Yeah, it'd be cool. And then there's obviously a few others like Star Wars, you know, Lord of the Rings, like Harry Potter. Like there's so many fun ones that I'm like,
oh yeah. Have you seen the leak? I saw it a long time ago, but like a screenshot of like the Vivi app. There's like a pod racer. Like you could see like a pod racer. Yeah. So stuff like that, even like Star Wars, I'm pretty confident about. And so
yeah, I'm pretty confident they have almost everything, you know?
Yeah, honestly, like they never cease to amaze me. So
like James Bond, I was like, okay, like I didn't even think about that one. Good.
Yeah. Like some of my friends who I kind of like, they're not like fully on Vivi. Like some kind of dabble in it. Some I just update them because they're interested in it. But like tons of my friends sent me the James Bond one, like sent it to me, like when they saw the tweet, and like, I didn't realize like how big it was, that like people who, you know, because I've been saying like I thought like Marvel and all those things, I thought like they were huge, but they sent me James Bond and they were excited about that. So like I think that's a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be.
Right. Yeah, it's huge, man. Like
it really is, and it's been around forever.
Exactly. Right. So I don't know, man. Like I think potentially like we're in it now for like this could be it. Like this could be the last time that we're seeing these prices, or not. I don't know. You know, I'm hoping there's still time so we can still continue to do what we're doing. But
yeah, and then also same thing with Omi token. I'm kind of conflicted because I have a lot of it. I want it to do well, but the lower the price is, the more it burns. So I'm like, I don't mind if it stays low for a little longer, you know? Like we can just keep burning it. So when it does blow up, there's just less supply to work with after that. But speaking of that, what's your opinion on Omi, and if you feel comfortable disclosing if you hold any of it?
Yeah, so when I first got on the app, I think I got in at 27 cents. It was like March 9th. And that was the whole reason I got into Veve was I was looking for like things that can make me a lot of money. And then there was like this video that was like, hey, if you like go and get OMI, like it's really difficult to do it. And so therefore, like it's just worth a lot because it's so early. So I was like,
Right.
man, there's a project that's like not even actually officially listed. And you have to like put in like some code. Like I remember like having to actually type in the code and making sure it was like right like 6 times and then transferring my
I know that
money.
very well.
Yeah. And I was like, it just make me make like and so it was kind of new to me, right? To actually do that. So I was like, this must be a winner. And then I remember I put in, I think it was like 5 grand or something. So
Oh,
I think
nice.
like I forget what it was. I think it was like over 1 million or something like that at the time.
Nice.
But yeah, since like so I just never took it out since then. Like it's just been sitting there. But so I guess I'm a millionaire, but I'm not like, I don't have like, 50 million or something like
Not like
crazy.
a whale, but you have a sizable
Yeah,
amount.
exactly. I'm like, put it this way, if it goes to $1, then I'm a millionaire, right? That's the way I
Right.
looked at it. I was like, okay, I could work with that and I'll just keep it there, forget about it, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
Do you plan to stake it once that program comes out?
for sure. And like, I hope the same thing happens with like NFTs and stuff too, but I would definitely just stake it and like, just forget about it, man. Like, and yeah, like,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I mean, I don't plan on selling it soon anyway, so I feel like might as well let it get rewards for me while it's just sitting there anyway. So
yeah,
that's the kind of
exactly.
philosophy.
Yeah, man.
And
So it's
so
exciting. Like I know there's that whole thing though. Like I forget what it was, but it was like the price was like manipulated or something by whales because it would keep coming up and down. So I'm hoping they resolve that issue. But I think with just mass volume and people being more interested in the token, like even if these guys are like owning a massive portion, like they can't control it forever. That's the way that I see it. But
yeah, they'll
uh,
get drowned out eventually, I think.
that's what I mean, right? So, but I don't know what the heck's going on because I'm like I would presume this thing to be at least like $3 by now. You know?
I know, just compared to other crypto projects, this has some of the most going for it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it always trips me out how like it hasn't, like I was saying, how it hasn't blown up so much yet. I'm like, everything like you ever look for in a crypto project is like it's all lining up perfectly. Like, how is this not blown up?
Yeah.
But like you mentioned earlier, I think people are suppressing it. I think like I listened to I watched a Tabs Trades video a while ago, and like one of the top NFT whales. I'm not sure exactly how you classify him, but he was saying like he was keeping an eye on Marvel Comics #1, and if he could have like spent his ETH, he would have no doubt just bought a bunch of it. But since he had to put gems and blah blah blah, like he didn't go through with it. And he had to just watch the price climb and climb. So I think like once we
I
get
see.
onto like Ethereum and just like that goes for the collectibles and for OMI.
Yeah.
Just when you get the Ethereum whales coming in, just more access. When we go on Coinbase and Binance, all that stuff, I think there'll be so much volume and a lot of the whales will be drowned out. And
Right. And dude, like we could see like if the comics are getting 50K now, like let's just be real, they're probably gonna hit 1 million once they're on immutable, right? Like
I
I
wouldn't
think
be surprised. I would.
like I wouldn't be surprised because like you just made a perfect argument. Like the guy's like, well, listen, I want to put that on a credit card or like, convert this crap to gems. Like I've got, 386 ETH here. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
exactly.
so I think you're right. Like I think like, I don't know, and like that's why some people were saying like, well, like when Todd's on OpenSea, nobody's gonna give it or Immutable, nobody's gonna give a crap if it was the first ever. But I'm like, if the Vivi can pull those same users back into Vivi platform, then who knows, right? So I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of the prices and stuff, when do you plan to take profits on some of your collectibles or like really cash out
So
like a sustainable amount?
yeah, so like I already did like already, which was at the wrong time. That was more
So
just for
like
like,
with the wedding and stuff?
yeah, so that was
Yeah.
just like kind of like life things got in the way, and I was like, those are kind of over leveraged with this. So I was like, okay, but I would just do it at like a peak, like if I see like NFTs and stuff, like that's the one thing I've learned is like even though something can continue to grow more, like I would want to take some profits when it's like peaking, and then when it's like a low period, then that's when I would just like reinvest in those profits into like everything again. So I'm
Right.
like, right now, I would presume like November or something would be a peak, and then like in 3 years from now, we'd probably hit another peak, but I think like next year it might like taper off for a bit as an example,
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have
So
any kind of target or like if you get to a certain amount, you'd be comfortable like, okay, I feel comfortable selling this and I could, you
yeah,
know,
like I think like 100K, like I'd be comfortable like selling some things off. So for instance, like if I had 250K in profit, I would be comfortable selling 100 off, then waiting for that 150 go to back to 250 as an example.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I just pay for every like, get a new car or whatever, like pay some debts, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even though these are so valuable, real money is valuable too. So it's
For
still
the
important.
yeah, like I mean, somebody would be like, people are probably gonna hate me because they're like, "Oh, you're not a diamond hand person," like like, and I agree. Like, I think like if you just held this all and you just kept spending money, and like 7 years from now, you'd be like have 10 million or something. But I'm kind of like, I don't like to take that much risk because I'm like, I've also got a life. Like, I've got all these things that I gotta like, I'm responsible for. So I'm like, I'm still risking money, but I like at the same time, if I've got 100K just sitting there, like, guess where that's going? Like, that's you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I totally feel that.
Yeah.
And so I was curious about what your thoughts were. Like, how do you see the VeVeVerse? And like, we can start with short term. Like, how do you think the first iteration of the VeVeVerse will be? And then we'll just say like 5 years from now, how do you see that?
Yeah, so I think like the first iteration is going to be like land based, like kind of like, you'd be able to maybe walk or something like that and then go into somebody's like showroom, and potentially it would be like a closed like environment where there's just like so many hectares of land and like, and then like then over time it'd probably be expanding. But I do think that like it's going to be, or it could be just like a huge world and then people would just have a lot of land, but like you'd have to like teleport to other places.
Right, right.
So I think like, whoever's investing in VV land, like if you like here's a perfect idea. Like if you had like, let's say, 1,000 hoverboards, and then you bought like, I don't know, 20 acres of land in the VeVeVerse for like 2 grand. Then all of a sudden now you're the hoverboard guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like your shop and you're renting them out in the future in 5 years from now, and everyone's paying you like $2.50 a board, and you're just
Right. Like a
taking
ski
in like,
slope, like a
yeah,
ski slope or
exactly.
something.
Right. Like that's where I think like that's kind of like the future that I see. But I think in the beginning it's going to be more just like, the one place that you all go to. It's like the museum with all the number ones that, Dan talks about. And then you
Right.
have the houses and like, and people have different size land and whatever. And like maybe you have little clubs and master collectors get like free access to things that are very exclusive. And like, slowly it's going to build into like more of like a city like feeling. But I think it's going to start off like very village like.
Oh, definitely. I could see it starting off like really rudimentary and just
Yeah.
kind of, you can walk around, you can set up your house, but like I feel like what'll really make it take off and what'll really like we'll see the crazy activity going on is I think that's a few years out personally.
Yeah, you're right. And I think like that's a good thing. Like I think that's going to give us still time to like, grow with it and like still give us opportunities. But I do think it's interesting, like, because we have to forecast what that's going to look like. And
Right.
so I don't know, man. And I'm interested too. Like, what if like Facebook likes like, listen, we're doing NFTs now too, and we're gonna like, do something unique as well. Like, I don't know, right? There's still like, that's what I mean. There's still like, even though this is like the best possible long-term project, I still think about like all the different scenarios where there could be a roadblock.
Definitely. Yeah. I always try to reel myself in, I guess you could say, because like just I think about VV so much and like in Ecomi, I'm like, am I missing something? Like, because I'm trying to think of like things like that could go wrong. And like, obviously, there are like some small things here and there that we maybe can't forecast or can't expect. But like the overall project, I'm like, where can this fail? I'm like, am I brainwashed? Am I like in a trance? Like, I can't see too many scenarios where it doesn't blow up. And I'm like, how it hasn't blown up yet. I don't see if I'm missing something, but
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
seems like
And
such a good opportunity.
I agree, man. And I think these could be like a lot bigger than people think. Like owning like we talked about like a, I don't know, like a Superman. Like you are Superman potentially. Like maybe that's your
Right.
skin. Maybe
Yeah.
like DC acknowledges that that's the only 8800 or whatever that they ever minted. And like you could do so much. You can, like you said, gamification. You can have it like hovering behind you in the mall. You can be it. Like, like there's so many things that could happen from this. And that's where my head goes. I'm like, there's things that are going to happen from this that like we can't even imagine right now because we're so far behind. But like we're just like, you're just making a bet. Like this could be like, I think what people think about an NFT, they're like, oh, it's a stupid picture on a phone that like you can kind of put into augmented reality. Like that's what people think right now. So when I show this to them, they're like, dude, why the heck would you ever spend, $1,000 on something like that? Like
Right.
you can go buy a watch. I can go to Cuba for a week. Like why? Like this doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense now. Like that's the whole point of this.
Yeah. Like that's why we're in so early because we see where it's going. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily because of, I mean, it still is really cool. Don't get me wrong. Right now, it's still awesome, but
Yeah.
we're dreaming bigger than that, and we're planning ahead.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's just like, why not take like a calculated risk on this stuff, especially with the amount of like users and craziness and like fandom, like, you know, like, man, I hardly think that BB really did that much advertising. Like, I think they're trying to like even themselves hone it back because they realize they're like growing, but they don't want to go too fast either, right?
Yeah, because I mean, we were both around for like, I think I joined Veve, like I think my account was officially created like March 3rd, but
Wow.
I don't think I bought anything until like the 21st. Because like
Wow.
it's so funny, like looking back on it now, like I saw like some collectibles that sitting there for like $50. I'm like, I'm not gonna pay $50 for that. And then, you know, here I am now. But
Yeah.
um but yeah, like we saw very soon after that there was that huge influx after the Nightwing drop. And like for like the next few drops, like the app would crash every single time, like without fail. Like I'm sure you knew that, like you were, I know I was, I'm sure you were expecting it to crash every time it dropped. I wouldn't even count on getting it. I'm like, I'm going to wait 30 minutes, stay on the app, hope for the best. And so I think they, like you said, they're trying to kind of keep it under wraps a bit, because I think if they do advertise too much, it would grow past what their infrastructure could hold. And so,
Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And you know what's scary prospect to think is like, you know how we're talking about like the secret rares right now for the comics being like 600 editions? If we get like way more users, like let's just say this thing does catch fire and there's like 35 million people, your secret rares would be like 40,000 editions. Do you know what I'm trying to
right,
say?
right.
So like something that's 150 would literally be like so exclusive and so much money that like it wouldn't even make sense. Like that might never happen again, you know? So like that's the part that like I think about sometimes. I'm like, you know, like everybody sees these things now that are like 11,800 editions. Like I remember like the Catwoman, right? I think it's like 11,800 or 10,800.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's like, that's stupid. Like nobody's gonna do that. And now here we are. It's sold out now. It's going for like 70 gems. Next year it'll be like, you know, 400 gems. And the year after that would be like $2,000 to get a Catwoman, you know? So it's like, and that's the thing that people don't understand. And that's the part that fascinates me, because I'm like, oh, and that's what I think about Todd. Like, even though it's 7,500, it's like massive fan base, and it's the FA. That's the only one.
Right. So I mean, even if you divide 7,500 by a million, that's still, you know, like a fraction of a percent. So,
Exactly. Yeah, well said.
and so I'm sure we could talk about Veve and Ecomi all day,
Yeah.
but I know we're both busy guys, but I'll leave you with one last question. And so I know, like, starting my YouTube journey, like some of my favorite aspect of it has kind of been like being able to be creative and kind of have like the project to work on and seeing the finished product and just seeing it all come together. I would say that, and like the community aspect have been my favorite. I was going to ask you to round us off what your favorite part of being a Veve and Ecomi YouTuber is.
Man, it's probably just like the actual sincerity of the community. Like when I never did YouTube before, so I think I was actually like nervous to do it, because I was like, oh, people are gonna rip me apart and be like, you're an asshole, or like say these things that were like really rude. And like I remember like coming back in that video I just did, and people were like, man, welcome back, we missed you, like don't leave again. And like you definitely get like the odd like negative comment, which is to be expected. But like that part shocked me, was like how much of a fan base you can have with and I'm just a guy, like I'm just a guy talking about collecting. But now all of a sudden, like people are like, hey, do you mind, like, you know, now we're talking, as an example, or people will reach out to me, and I'm like, man, this is like, I just never expected that, you know? And
Right.
and I think like the community is super strong compared to a lot of other projects. And I feel like it's not just like crypto people, like Veve brings out like a whole other side of people. It's like, it feels like why the heck would I start a YouTube channel? Like I never wanted to do that ever.
Yeah,
And then
same
like, I
here.
got to Veve, and I was like, let me do a YouTube channel. Like how does that make
Exactly.
sense, right? So like I feel like it just brought out a different side of me, man. And obviously same with you. So
Yeah, and like something about Veve, I can't pinpoint what it is, but like it just, like, from the start it drew me in, and like it just hooked me like so hard and so fast. And everyone I show who actually like takes the time to get into it, they get hooked too. Like my mom, like my girlfriend, like we're all like so deep in. Like something about this, because like I'm more inclined to crypto and stuff than they are, and like
yeah,
that kind of thing. But like they're just all in too. I'm like, man, like it's anecdotal, but I think that's a great sign for the future of like how big this could really get.
totally agree. Like I think it's, yeah. And I think like I'm not one to be this bullish on a project. Like I'm usually just like very like, okay, if this goes up, it goes up. I'll pull out at a certain point. And this was like a life-changing project. I was like, man,
Oh yeah.
this is like an Amazon, this is an Apple, this is a Microsoft. Like these are one of those things that will change the world potentially. So, and I think like everybody that gets on it thinks that, you know?
Oh, definitely. That's definitely how I think about it.
Yeah.
So, man, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah,
Hope
you
we,
too, dude.
hope we can do it again in the future sometime. But congrats on the marriage. Congrats on the new house, everything like that. Hope
Thanks,
you're doing well, man. And I really appreciate your time.
yeah, you're great, man. Keep doing what you're doing too. Like I said, I'm like a big fan of yours as well. So yeah, it was a great chat. I felt like it was like so natural. I feel like I didn't even know the camera was on. So, so
Honestly,
yeah,
honestly, it was great, man.
yeah, awesome, buddy. Well, take care and thanks for having me on. Eh?
Of course, man. Anytime.